I'm joined by John Kirton, the director of the G20 Research Group. John, thank you for joining us, taking time to talk to us. What do you view as the most interesting, what's the newest aspect that's to come from the announcement of the Global Alliance to Combat Poverty?
That's certainly a big part of it. G20 summits have dealt with poverty and hunger since the start in Washington, D.C. Way back in 2008. But never before has the first priority been ending hunger by 2030 and reducing poverty by that date. But that's what Lula has put front and center, very ambitious objectives, and he's gotten off to a good start. The Global Alliance, a few days before the leaders got together, announced that they had not just said nice things, but had raised $35 billion in new money to put their money where their mouth is.
In practical terms, where does that money go, and how do they implement these new policies to eradicate poverty in that short time frame, as you mentioned, which is highly ambitious?
Well, the fine print says it's going to be very well targeted and monitored to ensure effectiveness, and if something's not working, they'll adjust, they'll change course. And you've got the most powerful multilateral development banks to do the job, to look over it. And that's true too for the leaders today who sat down at their first session. They put their money into the pot too. China, a big contribution. Some of the rich leaders here. Norway, other guests are adding too. So we'll have to see how much it's come up to at the end of this great global fundraiser. But there's going to be a lot more money for poverty, for hunger, than there was even a week ago.
So the will is there, the money's there. What are some of the obstacles that are driving inequalities around the world, and what would you expect can be changed with this extra money and this political will that we're seeing here?
The biggest obstacle is, of course, climate change, an existential threat to all living things on the planet. But it's the one that, on hunger, it makes the crops wilt and dry because the temperature is too hot. Drought, extreme weather events, the floods that just flood them out and wipe them out. At the moment, the world produces enough food to feed everyone on the planet. We just can't get it to the right people, the right places, the right food on time. But climate change is really going to put us on the back foot unless we get a handle on that. And that's the job for the G20 tomorrow morning.
Sure, you mentioned food security, climate change, buzzwords, but in a changing geopolitical panorama, what do you expect with changes in the United States? What is the challenge? How can the G20 ensure that the agreements that we expect them to make tomorrow stay in place?
Some people worried that one of the G20 leaders, President Milei of Argentina, stopped in first in Florida to get his marching orders from Donald Trump, and then came here and started to undo some of the agreements Argentina had already agreed to. But what we see is that Argentina alone is not enough to actually prevent President Lula next door, Joe Biden, and all the other G20 leaders, Xi Jinping of China, from doing what they want to do. And I think we're now seeing that the looming presence of Donald Trump, and he hosts the G20 2 years from now, means that here they're going to go further, faster than they otherwise would before they have to deal with Donald Trump. So a short-term boost. Let's see if they can stay the course.
The final question for you, John. What would the Global Alliance coming into force, what would be a success? You mentioned 2030, eradicating poverty.
Yeah.
That's a short time frame. What would a success look like?
Not a single person would go to bed at night hungry in the planet amongst the 7-8 billion people we'll have there. And not just by 2030, but we will have controlled climate change enough to know that none of them will live in fear that their crops will be wiped out, that they themselves might be wiped up by a flood, as we saw, well, when Hurricane Katrina, hit the USA. a little while ago, and all the other extreme weather events that are hammering the USA, China, every country now.